Yeah. So I just had a call with a new prospective parent. Perfect fits for Acton. We're gonna meet them next week, so super excited about that. And yeah, I'm redesigning our website and stuff
Cool,
now, and our sales funnel, and what we actually like, what our sales process looks like. So yeah.
cool, cool. Yeah. Great. Yeah. So I can the first question that I wanted to ask you is, what do you do? So if you could take me through, a typical day in your life, what does that look like? What are the different workflows that you work with?
So as far as me, or as far as like a guide in this, because I was the middle school guide this year, and then I just transitioned into a role that's not being a guide anymore. So do you want me to take you through both days, like what happens in
Yeah.
Spark, what happens in elementary, what happens in middle school, and then also what I do?
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Oh yeah. So Spark at Acton is the first part of the day is very Montessori. So there is some technology involved with that, but we're getting even more Montessori than we were before. So they just have the freedom to choose what they want to do. And then in the afternoons, it's more just play, like being outside as much as possible, getting along with one another, play as much as possible. In the elementary studio, that's when we kind of shift over to more what Acton does for core skills. And core skills at Acton looks like AI programs for math and language arts, Dear, drop everything and read. Pick whatever book you want, whether that's a comic book or a chapter book or whatever. Um, that's what the morning looks like in elementary. Also, they do civilization, which is economics, art, and stuff like geography, stuff along those lines. But we don't do it how a typical model does it. They don't memorize and regurgitate information. We read books or look at videos or do our own independent research, and then we come together and we have a Socratic discussion about it. And then the afternoons we do quests and writers workshop. So they basically are doing something. So if they want to be an architect, they're doing the floor plans, they're doing the 3D models, stuff along those lines, or they're building the business or whatever it is. And in elementary, the goal of it is to really help them learn how to work together. So all of those quests and writing workshop projects are being done together. And then we also have free time, so an hour of just play outside as much as possible. And then as we get into the middle school studio, we really trust the learners. So the middle school learners are running the school at that, I mean, running their studio. And then in Launchpad, there's not even an adult in the room. We don't have that yet. We're going to be expanding to our Launchpad next year. But middle school looks very similar to elementary. There is, instead of learning to read, they're reading to learn. So they're doing a lot more deep book type of work. They're really picking what they love to learn about and going deeply into that. The learners themselves hold each other accountable. Excellence is a standard at Acton. There's a lot of freedom within what we do, but we still want them to, produce quality work. So everything they do, they submit it and they have to get it approved by the other learners in the studio to be like, hey, this is ready for exhibition or not. Kind of going all over the place here, but exhibition is every 4 to 6 weeks for them just to showcase what they have done the last couple of weeks to the parents. A lot of that is selling something, presenting something, being in front of people, and learning how to communicate and articulate their thoughts confidently in front of people. Um, yeah, and then we also do PDP, so personal development project, just like Praxis, where they kind of one of the learners was doing a Harvard course for coding. He's 12. We also do apprenticeships as in the middle school studio, so as early as 10, 11, 12 years old. They're pitching companies, they're interviewing with companies, and then eventually they're going to have to get opportunities in which they're getting paid for. So it's not just a
This is
free
in
thing.
middle
Oh, you're a
school?
kid. This is in middle school. Yeah. And then in Launchpad, 30 to 50% of their time is spent outside of the school doing real world apprenticeships. So basically, praxis, but for younger people, and praxis is unnecessary for somebody that comes to acting just because they're doing it, you know, at 10 years old, 11 years old, and 12 years old. So, yeah.
Super cool. Yeah. I mean, Praxis is one of the experiences that I think transformed my life. So I think doing it from that age would be, I can only imagine the impact that would have on somebody. One thing I was thinking of when I was listening to you about, the middle school curriculum is that it sounds like a lot of it, a big part of it is self-directed. And I was wondering if you ever require the need for a structure? And if you do, then where is the balance between having a structure versus letting the student decide? And how do you strike that balance? Like, what are some of the things that Acton needs you to have versus Acton lets you decide?
Yeah, so in the mornings, your freedom is determining what you want to do. So is it math? Is it language arts? Is it reading a book? But within that time, we have silent core skills or collaborative core skills. And the expectation is that you're working on one of those things, whatever, like you have the freedom to do whatever it is. But we also have like brain breaks and stuff in which they can, do things that aren't just school related. But during that work time, like it is a standard that they are the ones to hold each other accountable to doing whatever it is that we're doing. And then as far as like the quests and the projects that we're working on in the afternoon, um, Acton has created all of those projects, Socratic discussions, the challenges, everything is displayed in a 200-page document, and we just follow along with that. So a lot of Actons have like the year kind of displayed before they get started. But at our Acton, we let them choose which project they want to do as a studio. And I think having that, ability to make that decision, they really enjoy that. So that's kind of where the freedom comes in. And then in addition to that, it's like they can choose not to do work, but then come exhibition time, they have to stand up there and say like, "Hey, I didn't do anything." um, this entire 6 weeks. And typically, I haven't seen that happen, but I know in other actins they have seen that happen, and they just have to explain why they didn't do anything. And sometimes parents get upset about that, sometimes not. Um, but yeah, so we have freedom within boundaries, and then in addition to that, we have freedom levels. This was only our first year having a middle school studio. So some of these systems get implemented farther into it because a lot of the times they start to learn from themselves, like, hey, we need this system to solve this problem. And what freedom levels are basically like at first you have to stay in your squad room and you have to work in there, and you have to be with your squad leader. And then the next freedom level is you get to go into a different room, and the next freedom level is you get to go into the room that everybody wants to go into, and there's like levels to it. And having those systems in place really just makes it concrete for what you know is the standard versus what isn't. It's not like we're having discussions about every little thing within the day. It's like when we have town council meetings, that's when changes get made. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, but I'm sure you have maybe some follow-ups to it because I kind of
Yeah.
went everywhere there.
No, no, yeah, that's definitely helpful. And I like getting like a, large overview of the whole thing so that we can dive into, specific things. Um,
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking of is, are there specific goals towards which, and I'm guessing the students themselves kind of set these goals,
Yeah.
towards which you're tracking the progress of a student, and then how is, what are the tracking metrics, and then how is the, um, how do you measure the progress of a child? Let's say that's like the big general question, right? So how does that come into
Yeah.
play?
I mean, some of the things like can't really be trackable, like the character building and the I don't know. There's just so many things that you can't really track, but we do track a lot. So intentional work is we track in three ways. It's badges, points, and then 360 reviews. So the points is for every math lesson they earn a certain amount of points. For every language arts lesson they earn a certain amount of points. For the stuff they do in class, the challenges, they earn a certain amount of points, and basically that's indicating how much intentional work they did throughout the week. So every 20 points is 1 hour of hard dedicated work. Um, and that's how we know it's like, okay, if you had 30 hours to work this week and you only did two, okay, the squad leader is probably going to be like, hey, like, what can you do next week to make sure you are more intentional with your time? Um, and then the badges after every 4 to 6 weeks, the learners within the studio like say, okay, this is excellent work, and you earn a badge for this, or you don't. And they're super honest about it, and they're not afraid to tell you that you didn't earn it because they know. I mean, they're in the studio all the time. They know more than we do what's actually happening. And then the 360 reviews is more so like the character development. The are you being nice in the studio? Are you being a good leader? Are you being intentional with your time? And every session, they vote on like they anonymously tell their peers like scale of 1 to 10, you're being not nice or nice, you're being a leader or not a leader. And they see those and um yeah, so those are the way that we track in that way. And then in addition to that, we have a badge plan in which they know what they need to accomplish in their core skills, so math, language arts, and stuff, to be able to graduate to the next studio because they can graduate at any time. Like they could be 12 years old or 10 years old and graduate from the middle school studio to go to the Launchpad. Um, and then they know like how many badges, like quest and writers workshop, that they need to get done to progress, and then all the math stuff and servant leadership badges. Those are super important as well. Like becoming a world class Socratic discussion leader, becoming a servant leader, becoming a great squad leader. You know, having a heart of a hero. There's like everything is kind of laid out in our systems. Um, yeah, so that's the main component of how we track. Like everything they do, like the whole portfolio for the middle school is on our software, and we have every single piece of work that they've done. Um, yeah,
Yeah, there's so many little things about this that I appreciate. The things that you're choosing to track is great, and the fact that there is not a linear program that relates itself with time. It's just these are the core skills that you accomplish to get to the next level, and that can happen at any age at your own pace. I think it's fantastic. I also like that a lot of this seems to be self-tracking. So it's students deciding, amongst themselves how they are performing. It's really great to, learn how to give feedback from an early age like that. Um,
yeah,
so I have like one follow-up question to this, and then again we can just move on to what we discussed in the beginning, which is what do you do? But the one follow-up question I had was, what are some of the what are some stories you can share of, the impacts that have happened to students who have gone through their process, right? Like, what are some cool things that they're doing? What are some stories that you can share from your school?
yeah. So our school, I've only been at the school for a year and a half now. So it's hard for me to say like, we only our oldest learner right now is 13 years old. So I can tell some examples of what other Actons have seen, and then also just like how much progress I've seen some of our specific learners make. But the first thing I could say is at Acton Academies, like the one Acton Placer, um, there was like they do apprenticeships throughout their entire launchpad journey, and apparently there was like 7 Acton learners graduating a year, and like there were businesses that were fighting over getting them to work for them at 17 years old and wanting to offer them, 6-figure salaries. So it just like produces something completely different than the public education system does, like confident, articulate, they trust themselves, they know how to make decisions, stuff along those lines. And then what I could say about our school and what I've seen is like there was this Penguins player who brought his daughter to Pittsburgh. Obviously, they move around a lot because he joins a lot of different teams. And they were in a Montessori school prior to coming here, and then they came here and didn't know about Acton, so they put their daughter into a Christian school, and she completely hated it. Like despised every aspect of it, didn't want to go to school, like argue with their parents every single day. And then they found out about Acton. They brought her here, and within a week, she loved school again. She was enjoying the learning process. She was learning a lot. She was progressing a lot. She loved that freedom. She loved that autonomy. It's not like she wasn't learning and just like having fun all day. It's just like she actually got control over her own education, and she really enjoyed it. And then another one, there was someone who moved here from, I want to say, a different country, and they had homeschooled their entire life, and they moved to Pittsburgh. Their country wasn't in a good spot. They came here, and they had 3 daughters. The youngest two really wanted to come. They just wanted to meet their peers and stuff like that. And then the older one was like kind of struggling with it. Like she doesn't really like talking to people. She was super nervous. She was like, "Yeah, there's no way that we're going to be able to get her to come here." Um, but we came up with some ideas just to get her to commit for like 30 minutes. And she was like, okay, 30 minutes, I'll come in. But dad, you have to stay in the car outside. Like if I get nervous, I'm gonna come out in 30 minutes. Like I'm only gonna stay for 30 minutes. She came in for that 30 minutes and she never left. And she's been happy since then. So it just creates an environment in which kids can really be themselves and enjoy being here. It's not like they have to worry about all these outside things. I know, like when I went to school, it's like bullying, you know, making people like just not being able to be who you actually are because you're not pursuing anything that you're really interested in. But the learners here can really, really be themselves, and they love to come every day.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. In terms of outcomes, a big part of your answer was happiness in learning, curiosity about learning, loving to learn. I love that. It's really something that we need to pay more attention to. So super cool.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, what does your day to day look like?
Yeah, and then in addition to the last question, I just the apprenticeships that we did this year, 10, 11, 12 years old, the feedback that we got from the business owners there, it's like, oh my, like there aren't kids out there that talk like this. And when they came to our school, they actually provided real value to us and we want to hire them. And we heard that time and time again. So, but as far as my day to day, I was the middle school guide, so I'm still trying to figure that out. Honestly, my true passion is marketing and I like this like sales calls and stuff like that. So I'm redesigning our website, creating our sales process. Um, I do the tours in person. I take the initial phone calls. Um, I lead the guides. I do the internal, so like the badge plans that they're working on. Like I make sure like they're the right badge plans. Um, Internal, external operations. As far as I'm like not like fundraising. That's something that we've never done before. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that. And I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit about that and how you're going about it.
Sure.
Um, but I created a landing page for that. Um, and then I'm gonna do a lot of cold outreach to like businesses and stuff is what I'm working on. But yeah, it's a lot of everything. Honestly, this last year and a half. So we had ahead of school, and then we had another guide, and that's when I came into. I was an assistant guide to start, and those two people within 4 months of me working here either got fired or quit. So it's basically me and 26 kids, and the owner has another job, so he's not actually running the school in any way. So I had to figure all this stuff out. So basically, what I've been doing for this last year and a half is making sure the systems are what Acton wants them to be, and we're really following the philosophy like in being on point with it. So all my time has been dedicated towards like, are we doing this the right way? Doing this the right way? Teaching the guides like, hey, you can't say that because that's not what we believe in. So stuff along those lines. So I'm really just this last 2 3 weeks is actually transitioning over to growing the school and really getting the word out there about us. So I'm still trying to figure some of this stuff out, but yeah,
Super cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, during that time it must have been really difficult, being pretty much the only operational person, that's tough too.
yeah, it was a fun ride though. I
Yeah,
I worked a lot, but it was fun.
I'm sure. Great. I mean, the next two questions, I think I'll combine them a bit. One is how did you get this job? And the other is why are you here? Why do you work in this field with Acton? Why do this? So yeah.
Yeah, how did I get this job? So I reached out when I was doing praxis. I was like, this is working so well for people our age. Why is this not happening K through 12? And then I realized after doing more research that there were people that were doing it K through 12. And Ali Bazin, I always forget how to pronounce her last name, but she actually got partnered from Praxis to go work for Acton Plaster and do their marketing and stuff. So I connected with Matt and I just loved everything that he was talking about. And then I realized that there were more Actons. So like I just completely fell in love with it. So after that whole experience, I reached out to the founder and I was like, hey man, I don't know. At that point, I didn't think I could be a guide. Like I didn't have the confidence in myself. Like I just thought I could potentially do marketing or something for them in the future. So we connected, and for 2 years after that original connection, we continued to stay in contact just because I couldn't help myself but reach out to him and ask him about how the school was going. And he reached out to me for help finding an assistant guide for the school because they were growing at that point. And I reached out to like 10 different people, and none of them understood what Acton was like I did. And I was just like, I don't even want to send them to him. And then I was like, you know what? I'm doing this. I'm running this business with my friend, and I really like it. But the thing that I think about the most is the school. So I was like, I'm just going to be the assistant guy. I don't have time to do it, but I'm going to do it anyways. And then I did, and within 3 months, I completely fell in love, and I was like, I got to go full time. I just have to. So I did, and then I honestly think how I got the job was just our connection and how passionate I was. Like you can't say no to somebody. Like just like thinking about it from now, I'm the one helping hire people. Like you can't say no to somebody who is that passionate and like about what they're trying to do. So I think that's how I got the job. And then as far as why I'm here, um, I don't know. I just in high school, I just looked around at everybody and I saw really, really intelligent kids, and those were the ones that were doing the worst. And I just could never understand that. Like they were depressed, they had their heads down, they were bored. And then in addition to that, all the people that were struggling just weren't getting the help that they deserved. And I was like, there's just gotta be a better way. And then in addition to that, like I wanted to like start businesses and like build things. And I was so, set on I'm gonna be a business owner. I want to build things, and I would bring candy to school, or I would bring other things to school, and they would tell me I can't do it. And I was like, why aren't they trying to help me cultivate this skill set? But they're telling me, no, you can't do that to learn this subject that I don't care about. So that, and then the praxis experience itself was like, this is just makes so much sense. Like, why am I not? And then my mom was a director of a preschool. There's like so many stories as to why I'm here. I feel like it is my hero's journey, like we talk about at Acton all the time. But my mom was the director of a preschool for 35 years, and I always wanted to build a preschool with her. And that mission, that thing that I wanted to do, kind of transitioned into Acton's, and now she is part of our team. She worked at the same place for 35 years, and I convinced her to come and work for us instead. So, um, yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, so many factors into play. I like how you got the job. Didn't find a single person to refer, and it had to be you. Super
Yeah,
cool.
they weren't good enough.
Yeah.
Not
You know,
passionate enough, not good enough. It's just like they didn't care as much as I did. So,
yeah, makes sense. Interestingly, on your story of bringing candy to school as a business, in well, middle school, I used to run these Dungeons and Dragons campaigns in like in school, and I used to charge people for like freebies. Like you get this random item in my game, and people used to just give me money for it, right? Like I monetized this Dungeons and Dragons play in my school, and that was fun. Um,
I
but
love
yeah.
that so much. That's
Super
so cool,
cool.
man.
Um, Great. I mean, the next question, I think this is something we discussed, a little bit before our recording started, but what are your future goals? What do you want to achieve?
I want to build as many of these as possible. And I don't want to like. I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, because I don't. I was a guide for so long, and like people was like, "Oh, you're a teacher. Why'd you want to become a teacher?" It's like I never wanted to become a teacher. I just saw this thing that I was super passionate about, and I wanted to change, so I went and started to change it. Um, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs have this vision of like building $1 billion company for some reason, but that just has never like set well with me. I'm like, I want to impact as many people as possible. And in this, I know my role is important, but also like I could not find another one of my mom. So like I want to pay her and every other guy in the studio as much as humanly possible. And they are just as valuable to our company as I am. So I just kind of want to like really build these schools and make sure every single person with inside of them is winning at the highest level. So paying guides really, really well, um, best possible school experience, best possible outcomes for the kids, whether that's Ivy League schools, whether that's building a business in high school, whatever it is. And I just want to make this accessible to as many kids as humanly possible because I feel like they all deserve it.
Love it. Love that. Um, Great. Um, Next question is, it's the question that Mitchell always asks in all of his podcasts is, what advice would you give to someone who is trying to break into the same industry as you? Say, the next person who wants to work in an alternative school and act in an operational capacity. What are the skills that they must develop? What are the experiences that they must get? Um, what should their journey look like, right? What advice could you give them?
Well, I would say, I mean, do it for the right reasons. Like, just know yourself. And if this is something that, you thought about when you were a kid, like you wanted to be a teacher or you want to be part of a school or something that's just like naturally you want to do and you don't have to get paid for, um, I would say to understand yourself first. If that's actually you and you really, really deeply care about this thing, then like, I don't think you're going to be able to stop yourself from reading books, watching podcasts on it, doing the things that you need to do. I really think it's just like make sure you actually want to do this, and maybe it's not your thing because I worked for some other companies and I really liked their business model, but when I went in there and was doing the day to day of what my actual job was, like I realized that it wasn't my thing. Um, so I guess the advice I would give is just make sure this is actually what you want to do, and then in that the skill sets you need to build will come because of your passion for it.
Yeah, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Um, Yeah, I mean, I think it's also similar to a lot of the ways where kids in alternative schools actually function, right? Like you spend a lot of time discovering what truly sets you alive, and then you use that
Yep.
to really learn the things that you need along the way. I think
Yep.
what traditional schools often get wrong is that you first focus on developing these core competencies, and then you're promised that once you develop these core competencies, you can then go and chase your dreams if you want to. But by then your dreams have extinguished and it's far too late. Uh,
Yeah.
I love
It's like the
how
Simon Sinek thing, like start with why first and then
exactly,
go and build those skill sets. Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, great. Um, I guess my last question that I've written down here is that what are the biggest challenges in your professional life right now? What are,
Mhm.
the biggest problems that you're facing currently?
Um, I think it's just figuring out. I don't know. I feel like I've read a lot of different books and have looked into a lot of different perspectives, and I'm just really trying to figure out what I actually believe to be the best possible, philosophy for how to go about this. And it's something I'm still trying to figure out. And I've gotten confident as I've been here longer. But I am somebody that questions everything all the time and wants to make sure that whatever it is we're doing is the right way. But I also feel like you never know if it's the right way until you actually do it for 2 years or 3 years or let it you know be something that we actually stick to for a while. But I don't know. I think that, and then also just educating parents because like the kids are so easy. They understand it. They're passionate. They enjoy the learning process, but the parents don't always get to see the day to day of what they're actually doing and how cool and awesome they are and what they're working on. So I think just like I think my biggest thing that I need to do is just educating parents on this philosophy, why we're doing it, and just have them completely bought in as much as the kids are and I am on this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Super cool. Yeah, I think that concludes all of the questions I had written down for you. So yeah, thank you for giving me your time. I definitely, there's a lot that I learned today, and I think I'm gonna shut off the recording now, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions if you have any. But again, thank you for taking the time and yeah, answering these questions for me.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. I definitely want to ask you some questions.